The 2024 F1 season has been a surprise to many of us. While Max Verstappen and Red Bull started the season strong and looked likely to repeat their 2023 dominance, we've ended up with 7 different race winners, a resurgent Mercedes, McLaren closing the gap to Red Bull, and Max's 4th title is not yet guaranteed. There are just 10 races left and everything to play for. So with that in mind, we turn our sights to the Dutch Grand Prix. But the road to Zandvoort is at a standstill. So you might as well cool those brakes, relax, and chill with us for a while.
Hello and welcome to Traffic Paradise. I'm Uno, and joining me today are Immy.
Hiya.
And Kira.
Hello.
How's everyone feeling? Are you excited for race week?
Yeah. Oh my god, it's been so long. I don't know how I survived.
No, definitely. This last 4 weeks have been way too long. Kira, how are you feeling?
Oh, it's so exciting. Honestly, I get so bored without being able to watch race week. So this is gonna be great.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. I've been having to come up with new hobbies and new things to watch and watching random things on YouTube just to kill time. So I'm very excited that we're back again. And I'm absolutely thrilled to get your predictions for the Grand Prix. But first, let me explain how this is going to work. Before every race, we will give predictions about the podium. There are 5 points for correctly guessing P1, 3 points for P2, and a single point for P3. There is an extra point on the table for a wild card prediction for a total of 10 points per race. We'll be keeping a points tally to see who has the most points by the end of the season, so make sure to follow us for future episodes and see who wins. So, Immy, are you ready to roll the dice for that jackpot and tell us your predictions?
Absolutely. I spent a lot of time this morning writing these down. Okay, so let's start with the podium. For P1, I'm kind of a Max fan, not super, but I really want him to win at home, and he hasn't won in so long. And also, I think even though the team is struggling a lot with the RB20, qualifying matters a lot around Zandvoort, and Max is really good at quali, even when there's no struggles, I think. So I think he has a good shot of putting it on pole, and I think if he does, then he has a good shot at winning. For P2, I'm predicting Lando, just because I think he's taken the summer break to sort of reset after a bit of a trend of maybe not the best performances. I think he's going to use this as a sort of resurgence. I see him putting in a good performance in quali, having a good race start. I see it. I'm rooting for him. And for P3, I've gone for Charles, because Ferrari are bringing upgrades to the Dutch Grand Prix. They're fixing their developmental blunder from Spain. They've got a new floor, changes in rear suspension airflow, and a new diffuser. I think it's going to put an end to the car's rear instability. I'm kind of praying, because Ferrari hasn't been great with upgrades, but this will allow the team to unlock more car performance, and it will give the drivers more confidence. And Charles really is good at pushing that car to the limit. And if the car has more to give, I think he'll put in a great showing during quali.
Okay, that's a bold strategy to back Ferrari for a podium with new upgrades. Let's see how it plays out for you. They're not generally the best.
Oh god, I know.
But no, we like a bold prediction. That's great. That's great. Kira, what are your predictions for the Zandvoort Grand Prix?
So I've also got a bit of a bold prediction for P1. So I'm going to go with Norris P1. If he can manage to fix up his starts, having had a lot of time to rest and recover over the summer break, I feel like he's got a really good chance of nabbing a win this week. Norris had a really good first half of the season, obviously getting his first win. The only problem, the recurring problem in these races has been his starts. He's gotten pole position, is it twice now, I think? And both times there he has lost it at turn 1. So as long as he can fix up his starts, I think he can nab P1 in this race. As for P2, I'm going for Max. I feel like we're going to see a bit of Max Norris drama. Hopefully not too reminiscent of Austria, because obviously that got a bit out of hand. But having some fighting would be great. Honestly, like seeing Max fight with Lewis in Hungary was really entertaining. So if something like that can happen with Max and Norris, I think that'd be brilliant. For P3, I'm going to go with Oscar Piastri, and I feel like I might be being a little bit biased here as a massive Oscar Piastri fan, but honestly, he's had probably one of the best first half of the season out of anybody on the grid. Very, very consistent, pretty much finishing the points every single race now. Hasn't DNF'd this entire season yet, which is brilliant. Honestly, with McLaren doing as well as they are this season, I think he's got a great chance of getting on the podium. So I'm going to put him into P3.
Cool. Okay. My prediction is maybe a little bit unorthodox, but I think Oscar Piastri is going to win. I put him as P1. I will then put Lewis Hamilton as P2. And for P3, I'm going to put Lando Norris. I think that Mercedes and McLaren have shown the most improvement this season. And I think that they are now ahead of Red Bull. And I think within the two teams, I think Oscar Piastri is in the better headspace to be getting wins. I don't think he's necessarily a better driver than Lando, but I think he's got the better mental game at the moment. Perhaps I'm wrong. Perhaps Lando's taken some time off this holiday to really understand his mental game on track and improve that. And for his sake, I hope that I'm wrong. But yeah, I think Oscar is just in the better space mentally to go and take a win at this moment. So that's my prediction. What do you guys think?
Honestly, if your prediction comes true, I'm going to be so happy.
Yeah, same. Oh my god. Yeah, a big Oscar fan too. I just didn't want to put him in because I don't want to have too much hope. Like, can't have a podium streak. I can't be too happy.
Who doesn't love Oscar Piastri?
His mom sometimes. She prefers Yuki Tsunoda, but yeah.
I love his mum. Oh my god.
Nicole is P1 always.
Nicole Piastri, we all love you.
Yes. Okay. So, we've all selected our winners. We've got Max Verstappen, we've got Lando Norris, and we've got Oscar Piastri. So clearly there's a bit of a feeling that McLaren's going to do well. We've got Lando. Everyone has predicted Lando on the podium in some position or another, with the Mercedes and the Ferrari being sort of outliers in that prediction. Why do we all feel so strongly that McLaren's going to do well?
McLaren have had the most insane podium streak. Like, they come out of nowhere from the end of last season and have gotten a podium at most races the first half of the season. So, and honestly, a double podium's not out of the question in any sense.
I think McLaren's just got the fastest race car overall. I mean, they've completely caught up to Red Bull, and then Red Bull's had a bit of a developmental stagnation. So they're running ahead. And Max is so good, but you can only do so much when your car's not amazing. So I think in any sense, McLaren are going to be on a podium unless they have a major strategic blunder, which does also happen quite often.
I don't think that Max is performing any worse this season than last season as himself. It's just that the car is just not there compared to the other teams this year. They were so far ahead last year.
Yeah, there's been whisperings. We're not going to cover this fully this week, but there's been whisperings that Red Bull might have been using was it an illegal brake?
Yeah, asymmetrical braking.
Yeah, so that could have been something that gave them an edge that they just don't have anymore.
Yeah, so just quickly, as you say, we will discuss this next week in more in-depth, but technically it wasn't illegal because there was nothing in the rules about it. But now it is illegal.
Yeah.
So whether or not, and no one actually knows for sure whether or not it was Red Bull. They've just sort of tracked that Red Bull's performance started going down after this new rule change got brought in. So people assume it's Red Bull.
I see.
Yeah, so that's why we don't really want to cover it at this moment. We want to get a bit more information before we start saying things like that. But yeah, I think Red Bull is going to struggle a bit. That's my feeling. Just to go back to a previous point, I've just pulled it up here on my computer. McLaren has been on the podium for every race since China.
Wow.
So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. They've had an 11 podium run.
That's insane.
11 podiums in the last 11 races, basically. A podium in every race. Sometimes in some of the races it was 2 podiums, obviously, both Lando and Oscar. But yeah, they've had an insane run of podiums.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything stopping them, really.
Let's get on to our next prediction. What is your wild card prediction? Immy?
Okay, so my prediction, I've had a gut feeling about this since we started talking about it, is that I think somebody's going to retire because of a mechanical issue. And then I was going on Wikipedia, and every single Dutch Grand Prix since it's been back on the calendar, somebody has retired because of a mechanical issue. Sometimes there was, I think in 2021, 3 people retired because of mechanical issues. I'm thinking there might be a little bit of a trend here.
The Zandvoort curse.
The Zandvoort curse. Oh, wow, that sounds spooky.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's interesting to me because we know that F1 cars are so much more reliable these days. So the fact that that track in particular is constantly having these mechanical failures, I wonder if there's something about the track. Maybe it is a curse. Who knows? But that's a very interesting prediction. And I think it will be very interesting to find out if you're right. It will certainly make the race more interesting. Kira, what is your wildcard prediction?
So I've got a gut feeling that we're going to see points from a backmarker team. And by backmarker team, I don't mean Alpine, I don't mean Haas. I'm talking Williams or Sauber. I feel like one of those 4 are going to get a point. Albon, Sargent, Bottas, or Zhou. One of them is going to get a point this week. At least one of them.
Ooh, I like that. That's an interesting prediction. Out of those 4, who do you think it would be? We won't count that as part of your prediction, but what does your heart tell you?
Well, my head is telling me Albon because that's the most realistic guess. My heart's telling me Sargent because, I love Sargent and it's just so sad that he's going to probably be leaving.
No, as well, my heart breaks for him, shame. Like, we need some freedom points.
Freedom points.
It would be really nice to see Logan get a point, I think. At least, I wouldn't want him to leave pointless in this season.
Yeah, and also like a point that's earned on track, not like after the fact through a disqualification like last year. It will be nice for him to actually earn that point on the track.
I mean, he was so happy last year to get that 1 point, even though technically it was just from a disqualification.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it moved him up to... Oh, no, he was still 21st in the championship standing.
Oh my god.
He's only 20th now.
Yeah, I think Valtteri Bottas is last at the moment.
Honestly, I don't see Sauber scoring points at all this year unless 5 people get taken out in like a... What year did 5 people get taken out in Hungary? I don't remember, 21? But
I think it was 21 with Bottas.
Yeah.
No, he didn't, so he's not going to hit the point.
Unless there's some big incident or a lot of people get disqualified or something, I really don't see a Sauber being in the points this year. The car is just absolutely nowhere.
It's just miles.
No, I agree. I think that they're very unlikely to score points unless something major happens. Like we're talking multiple safety cars, rain, and like a tire that comes off like after a pit stop kind of thing,
Yeah.
Like all those different things have to come into play for them to get a point.
Normally the tire coming off in the pit stop is happening to them though, that's the problem.
Let's
Yeah.
They have no hope.
It's gonna be like, yeah, what will happen is Valtteri will come out the pit lane, his wheel will come off, it will hit Zoe's car, and they're both gonna be out the race.
Oh dear.
Oh my god.
I do feel a bit bad for the Sauber drivers though, because I mean, obviously it's purely because of the car, but it's reflected very badly on both of them. Like everyone was saying that Bottas and Zhou both have no hope of a seat next year.
Yeah, I mean, I think Bottas is a good driver. He's not in a good car. Zhou, I think he's all right, but I feel like in his case, there's probably other people that maybe have more ability that could be in that seat. That's my view.
I agree.
I don't know if I see either of them getting seats next year. It seems the tides might have changed a little bit for Bottas, but not super hopeful.
There's a chance that I think there's a chance that Sauber will keep Bottas. If we're going off of talent, I think they would keep Bottas rather than risking it with somebody new.
Yeah, there's also the fact, like, do they really care about next year? Like, are they really racing for points? Maybe it's better to put in a rookie, let him like learn the ropes of F1 for a year, and then so in 2026 he's prepared to go and like do some actual good races, you know?
With Audi.
That's where Gabriel Bortoletto comes in then.
Oh.
Okay, but instead of predicting what's going to happen next year, let me predict what's going to happen on Sunday. My wild prediction is that I believe there are going to be 2 safety cars. Maybe it's not that wild, but it kind of goes in with what you guys are predicting as well. Maybe we'll all be right, because I think there's going to be 2 safety cars. So that would mean at least 2 people are not finishing that race.
I mean, a mechanical DNF might end up with 1, so we might aid each other.
Yes. There's a synergy here in our wildcard predictions. We might all get that point.
I haven't looked at the weather forecast yet, but if there's any bad weather, then your predictions, if anything, realistic.
Okay. So, with all that said, does anyone want to say anything else about the upcoming race on Sunday? Something you're looking forward to? Maybe something you think is going to happen? Obviously, this is not for points. It's just for fun. What do you think is going to happen? Kira, let's start with you.
Oh gosh, so I just feel like there's going to be some sort of drama. Honestly, I live for the drama. I don't know if Netflix is doing anything this weekend, but even if they aren't, just any kind of arguments and stuff. Like, I love seeing people get penalties. I love seeing like contact that ends in people getting penalties. Obviously, not to the level of, you know, the repeat of Verstappen and Ocon when that happened, but something along that lines would be quite fun.
Immy, what do you think? Anything you want to add for the race predictions?
Well, I think if it's going to be a rainy qualifying on Spa, I see somebody spinning off, I think, because that always tends to happen, so I feel like it's quite safe to think. I'd love to see some on-track action as well. I mean, if Lando is back in form and qualifies well and Max qualifies well, we could see something happening.
Okay, interesting. I'm also quite keen on qualifying. I think we're gonna get another Yuki Tsunoda Q3 entry.
Yeah.
He's been the best midfield qualifier this season, and I think he's gonna come back. He's spent a whole bunch of time in Japan, so he's got his energy reserves up. He's eaten lots of good sushi and Wagyu beef, and he's gonna be like in his element. And I think he's gonna have an amazing race.
I hope so.
I think we all hope so.
Yeah, we all want good things for Yuki, and I think he always tends to do better in the second half of the season. There's something about those tracks that he likes. I mean, if I remember last year, he only got 2 points in the first half of the season, and then he got like 15 points in the second half of the season. So he definitely likes the races after the fact. I mean, I don't know how much of that was also down to. I mean, I think a lot of that was down to AlphaTauri like making a better car halfway through the year.
Yeah.
But it's obviously it's some talent and some experience on his side as well at those tracks that helps them to achieve those points, because he was doing those sorts of finishes and Ricardo wasn't, so it wasn't just the car.
Yeah, I mean, if we see the first half of the season he's had this year, it slumped a bit in the middle, but it's been good. So we could hope for great things in the latter half then.
Absolutely. It's been his best season so far, in terms of just consistency. Yeah, there's been a few off races, some of it his fault, some of it not, but for the most part,
The track.
yeah, when you build a little like ramp that launches your car into the air, that's not good for the drivers.
Ugh.
Flying Yuki is not what we want to see. Let's get on to summer break. We've had a lot of news and then not so much news. A lot at the beginning and not so much now. But I think the biggest story to come out of the summer break was Carlos Sainz signed with Williams. What do you guys think about that, Immy?
Well, I mean, he didn't have many great options, to be honest. I sort of thought that he was going to go to Alpine, to be honest, with their engine deal, or to Sauber because they signed Mattia. So, but they picked. I thought Williams was done for him, but then I was at the airport waiting to go to board a flight when the news dropped. I was like, what the hell? But well, back marketing for Carlos.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm 100% understanding why he chose Williams. It seems a bit odd to me. They've not shown that they are a team that actually has any sort of real chance at challenging in the front, and they haven't shown that for years. Yeah, I think he there were better options on the table. Alpine's transition from works team to a customer team, buying Mercedes engines, for example, I think that's actually going to improve their standing. They obviously haven't done great this year, and I think a lot of that has to do with the Renault engine. So I think if they change their engines, they're going to be a better car. So I would have personally, if it was me, I would have gone to Alpine, but I'm not Carlos Sainz, nor am I his manager. Is his manager also named Carlos Sainz? Or is that his father?
And his manager is also named Carlos, but it's not Sainz. It's something else.
Oh, it's not Sainz. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, with the Williams thing, I have heard that James Vowles might have been sharing like information about the 2025 car with Carlos, so that might mean that it was desirable. Maybe Williams would pay him more, or just had nicer contract terms, or maybe his manager isn't great at negotiating and that was his only option, because Williams really wanted him. No other team wanted him as much as Williams did. It was insane watching James basically pine after him for most of the season.
Well, I don't know about them sharing information about the car in 2025, but I definitely know they were sharing some glasses of champagne in a candlelit hotel room. So whatever works for you, Carlos. We don't judge here. Kira, what do you think about Carlos to Williams?
So honestly, I'm sort of neutral about Carlos. Like, I'm neither a crazy fan or I don't not like him. Like, he's cool. He's cool. I'm just really worried, like, how this has been broken to Logan Sargent, because I think we all saw the video of the Williams factory celebrating the announcement. Like, that was some loud cheering, lots of very happy people, and I'm just like, personally, if I was Logan Sargent, I would be like head in the ground about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think James is definitely like, in a way, it's harsh, but I feel like James feels done with Logan. Like, there's nothing, and he just wants to move on, which just, I mean, it makes sense for 25, but for 24, for 10 more races, he is still your driver. So you maybe, like the amount of posts I saw, like, Carlos Sainz has won this many races and got this many points in his career, and he's coming to Williams. Like, you still got a second driver there for 10 races, but
also, like, Williams, I mean, I think, did you guys see that Williams tried to get Ocon to replace Sargent mid-season?
yeah, but then he was too tall to fit in the car, wasn't he?
Was it? Oh, I thought Alpine just blocked it.
I think Alpine blocked it, but I also heard that he was too tall for the car, because I mean they build the car for like the driver's heights, and Ocon is a tall guy.
So's Albon though.
Oh, but is Ocon taller? Oh wait, I need to look up heights now.
I think there's like a
That's what I
centimetre
saw.
between them.
I saw a commentator said that, I think.
So we've mentioned Albon here. How do you think Albon feels about this? Because Albon's supposed to be the number one driver at Williams. The whole thing was, James was all like, here's a driver who's committed to our long-term future, you know? And now they're sort of bringing in this other guy who they're hyping up now. Do you think Alex feels a bit sort of hard done by? Like, I feel bad for Logan. We all want good things for Logan. But I also think now, like, how does it affect Alex, you know?
Wait, yeah, sorry, they are exactly the same height. So I don't know where I heard that, but that was wrong.
That's fine.
And we all know that Alex fits into Logan's car. Australia.
Yeah. God. Well, Alpine must have blocked it then. But my view on Albon is, I don't know how he feels about it, but I think we'll see come 2025 if he is still sort of their main guy or not. Because I mean, they'll probably try, because I mean the narrative of Albon being their number one, everything's built around him, was before they signed Carlos. So that narrative might change. I think they're not going to openly favour Carlos, though, at least at first, because that's sort of just stabbing. I mean, I don't know, James Fowles likes to stab people in the back a bit, but that's just like with your driver that stuck by you for so long, would you do that? I think we'll see them like play it how McLaren does, with sort of not having a designated number one. Or do they? I don't know, but I don't get the impression that McLaren has a designated number one. I think that's how they'll play it.
McLaren have made it clear they don't have a number one driver.
Yeah, okay, good.
I don't feel like that's going to work at Williams, because, I mean, Carlos has always sort of been compared to being the number two driver to Charles Leclerc, even though they weren't really. Like, they were always sort of on par with each other. But you can sort of tell that Carlos wants to be a number one driver. But again, if your teammate's Alex Albon, that's not going to happen.
I mean, we can only wait and see, really. I think it will be interesting for Albon to have a benchmark who's actually been really good, because, I mean, since going to Williams, he's had Latifi and Sargent, which I like Sargent, but he's not amazing. That's just
it's just the sad truth.
Yeah.
And the American heartland sheds a tear. But on to other news from the summer break. There are rumors of Jack Doohan going to Alpine. Well, not going to Alpine. He's already at Alpine, but being promoted into that next to Pierre Gasly, getting Ocon's car. So Briatore has said that the driver lineup is not a priority for them next year. What do we think about both Jack Doohan at Alpine and what Briatore has said about it not being a priority, who they actually put in that car?
I thought they'd have signed Jack and have announced it in the summer, because there were rumors around that were really swirling. I think even there's this one F1 photographer, Kim Illman, and he like announced it and then took the video down like he knew something that we didn't. That was very weird. I'm thinking they're either, I don't know, because it seemed like they were basically, it was ready to happen. But now Briatore's been like, the driver lineup doesn't matter very much to us, which might just mean they're not looking elsewhere and they're just going with the guy they already have. or it might mean they are really just not going to think about it until like later in the year. So, I don't know, something might have happened.
Yeah, Kira, what do you think?
Well, with the way it's like first played out, it seems like the two go hand in hand with Briatore saying the lineup's not a priority, so they'd be fine having a rookie. You know, that's sort of what the gist I get from it. But at the same time, it could mean they are reconsidering. Honestly, I've got no idea.
Yeah, I kind of feel like Briatore saying that the driver lineup is not a priority is because they're not in this for the long run anymore.
Ooh, that's a good point.
Yeah, I think they want to sell the team, or at least sell off a part of it. You know, we clearly it's not been performing well. So if they transition to a customer team, it's a lot easier to then sell it to the next buyer, you know? Whether that is it Ryan Reynolds and his company?
They have like a part of it, don't they?
Yeah. So if it's more sort of like a bunch of sort of non-Formula One people who sort of invest in it and then they run it as a customer team, sort of like Haas. That's my take on that. The most, I think, interesting news, if it's more of a rumor than news, is that Kimi Antonelli is going to be announced at Monza to be racing next to George Russell in the Mercedes. We know that Toto Wolff is sort of torn between Kimi and Max. Whether Max is feeling that same sort of tension, I doubt. I don't think he's all that keen to go to Mercedes, but Toto really wants it. But Toto's backup plan is Kimi Antonelli. So what do we think about that?
I cannot wait, honestly. I really hope he gets a seat. Yes, he's really young. Yes, maybe he does need another season in F2, but I think he would be great if he does get in the car. Like, they've shown in the testing that he's obviously performing to par. There's no reason to, leave him in F2 for a year just for the sake of it.
No, yeah, I agree. I think F2 currently is a bit of a flawed series because they have all their mechachrome issues. It's not super representative of what a driver can actually do. And for all we know, Kimi is having tests with Mercedes and he's really showing that he can do good in that F1 seat. Why leave him in an F2 car for another year? I think if Kimi is working well for Mercedes, they like the numbers they're seeing. I'm all for him going there, I think. And I don't think Max is going to jump ship. At least definitely not 25. Maybe 2026, but not yet.
I think Max leaving is very unlikely. I kind of feel like Kimi might be a bit too young to go to Mercedes. I think that's a lot of pressure to put on him. Now, it's not that having young drivers at a team is all that rare. We know Max Verstappen was quite young. And Lewis Hamilton was older when he came to Formula One, but he had a lot the regulations back then around testing in season and spending caps and everything was a lot different. So McLaren had a lot of time with Lewis Hamilton before he came into Formula One to sort of train him up for it. So by the time he got into a Formula One car in an actual race, he had tons of experience and hours upon hours upon hours of time in the car. Whereas Kimi, he's not going to have that. So if he really is the second coming of Max Verstappen, then yeah, he'll be fine. Although even Max Verstappen, he was called Crash Stappen for a very long time. His rookie years there were some issues. He still showed a lot of promise, obviously, but there were some issues. But we know that even with issues in your rookie season, you can come out looking amazing and a potential 4-time world champion or 2-time world champion or 3-time world champion, depending on who you're talking to and how they feel about Abu Dhabi 2021. But the point is that I do think that Kimi is too young. And I think that Mercedes might be making a mistake in the short term in throwing away a potential championship fight next year in order to get Kimi up to speed maybe for 2026. Which, I mean, if that's the maths that they're doing, they're saying, look, we're going to sort of sacrifice a title bid next year in order to fully focus on 2026. That's a fair sort of calculation to make, you know? I just think I think maybe that's what their calculation is, that they're saying, look, we don't think we're going to, maybe they don't believe they have a chance at winning next year, so they figure, screw it. Although I'd say that their performance in the last few races shows that their car has definitely improved enough to be challenging for a constructor's title. I don't know about a driver's title. Is George Russell ready for that? I don't know. That's a debate for another day, perhaps. But I think that them signing Kimmy means that they've sort of written off a 2025 constructor's title challenge.
Yeah, I mean that is a very good point. A rookie, and even if he is the second coming of Max, probably isn't ready to challenge for a constructors. It could be, I mean, to an extent that Toto is blinded by the fact that Kimmy has been really good and he wants to just lock him down straight away, and there's not that opportunity at Williams to do that. So he's just going to put him straight in a Mercedes, because I mean, wasn't Max almost signed to Mercedes? I don't remember. But I think Toto doesn't want to lose his opportunity to have this big, really, really, really good racer. So he just wants to lock him down, even if that means sacrificing 2025.
Yeah, I think it's one of Toto's big regrets that he never got Max Verstappen, and I think he's trying to rectify that now with Kimmy. So, Oliver Oakes is becoming the team principal at Alpine. How do we feel about that?
Yeah, well, my thoughts on Oliver is, well, another new team principal for Alpine in like a year. It was a year ago that Bruno Farman replaced, God, so many names. Oh, I can't remember his name. I see his face in my head, but I don't remember his name. Anyway, Otmar. Thank you. I made it. There we go. Yeah, and he was the team principal of High Tech F2 team, which, I mean, possible more thoughts about Alpine being bought by somebody, you know? That's all I'm thinking about that. New team principal possibilities. There's lots of rumors. Oh, Nikita Mazepin's going to go to Alpine, I'm thinking. He's not. Just because High Tech wants his dad had stakes in High Tech does not mean Nikita Mazepin is going to go to Alpine. But yeah,
I can't believe that was actually a rumor.
God, honestly, I don't even see him doing much racing anymore. I don't know if he could even go in an F1 car at this point.
No. I mean, what I was thinking was that with Oaks moving to Alpine, and obviously him being the team principal of High Tech, when it was first announced, it gave me an ounce of hope for Paul Aaron.
Right, yeah.
But because obviously Paul Aaron has said that if he doesn't get to F1 or at least a reserve driver seat next year, he doesn't have the funds to do another year in F2. So I had hope for him, but honestly, I don't think Paul Aaron will get a place in F1, even though I wish he would.
I don't see him getting an F1 seat, but what could happen is, I mean, if Alpine put Jack Doohan in the second Alpine seat, he could be promoted to reserve driver, or he could join the Alpine Academy if he has these ties to Oliver Oakes and if he'll support him, which might give him the financial backing for another year in F2.
That's what I'm hoping for as well. I
think there are definitely possibilities. I'd find it quite cruel if he walked away from this season in F2 without getting any eyes from any team on him. So I mean, it's been stagnating a bit, but very, very, very consistent for the most part. I don't see why nobody would want a driver like that. I know money's always an object, right? But at some point, you think about talent a bit, because you don't just want to put somebody who's because they have a lot of money in the car.
I think the thing is, Paul Aaron's only stagnated because of he's had multiple DNFs. Like he's had the most horrible luck the second half of the first half of the season.
Yeah, I know.
Because he was leading and now he's fourth, I think.
That's the thing about F2, isn't it? Some people just look at the numbers and they don't look at like the context behind it, like how Logan almost won the season that Oscar won, but then he DNF'd in the last race. And it was all over. There's nothing you can do about it.
But also, this is why I think people discrediting Ollie Behrman and Kimi Antonelli a lot because of Prema's shortcomings. Like it's so volatile. It's not their fault specifically.
I mean, and also with Ollie, because he's been spending so much time doing FP1s for Haas, I think that's affected his performance because he doesn't have as much time in an F2 car. He doesn't have as many practices. And so much time spent in an F1 car, and you've got to jump between them, you know. And I mean, I think Behrman was right to do that because, I mean, look, he's ended up with a Haas seat, right? And people years later will look back at his F2 results and go, how the hell did he get an F1? But there's context behind it, and I think that race he did stepping in for Sainz is probably a big reason why he's ended up with that seat. And it's always, at the end of the day, luck. You have to have a lot of luck on your side to get an F1 seat.
Oliver Behrman is currently P14 in the F1 standings and P15 in the F2 standings.
Yeah.
So, his one performance in Formula One has netted him a higher ranking than his entire season in F2. So clearly, there's not like a clear line you can draw between performance in the two series. I know it was just one race and he happened to finish in the top 10, so he got a nice bunch of points, and Alpine's doing terribly, so that's why like Gasly and Ocon are like sort of equal with him on points in F1. But, well, Ocon's 1 point behind. But essentially, like, you cannot compare the two series, really. It's just two very different things. So just because someone, as you said, Logan did brilliantly, and then now he's not doing brilliantly, whereas Ollie's not doing great, and he's got a seat for next year in F1, and Kimi Antonelli's also not doing amazingly in F2. I think he's P7. Okay, he's not doing terribly, but he's P7 in the standings, and you know, he's going to be sort of taking over from Lewis Hamilton, 7-time world champion. You know, so there's a bit of a gap there in terms of how one series directly correlates to performance in another.
Yeah, F2 really is no measure of the F1 ability. Well, not no measure, because obviously you're going to know if they're capable, but the standings don't really show anything.
Let's move on quickly now to some Red Bull news, although not actually Red Bull news, because Jonathan Wheatley is going to go over to Audi and become their team principal. And Adrian Newey is now rumored, or basically confirmed, almost, to be going to Aston Martin. So we've got a bit of a brain drain coming out of Red Bull, going to these other teams. How do we feel about that?
Yeah, my thought here is that this could mean that there's a bit just of a breakdown inside of Red Bull when you've got all of these high-profile people leaving. Or, if you want to be optimistic, it could be that they've been at a successful team for so long and they want a kind of different challenge. So there's angles here. It could be that Christian Horner being there has led to some conflict because maybe he shouldn't still be a team principal. We'll see where that goes. I mean, there's lots of angles, I think. I think it means good things for Audi, though, because Mattia Binotto's definitely better in like a behind-the-scenes sort of role. What is he? Chief Operating Officer, and there's another one that I can't think of. Chief Technical. Jonathan Wheatley's they've been at Red Bull very successful for a long time. I think having this powerful front for Audi will be a really good thing.
It's not great for Red Bull unless they can get better people in to replace them, which I don't know how you can find better than, Adrian Newey. But honestly, with Jonathan Wheatley going to Audi, I think it'll be fun to see that. To see how he does as a team principal. But yeah, as far as it goes for Red Bull, it's not looking great.
I wonder, so let's maybe just take a moment to think, what do you see Audi doing? How do you see them doing in the coming years? Let's say because they're going to start in 2026 and go up to like 2028. We know that now we've spoken about Jonathan Wheatley going there, Mattia Binotto. We know that Nico Hülkenberg's going there. How do we feel that they're going to do?
Well, I see it really depends to me. I mean, they're going to have that engine. Will they have the chassis and the aerodynamics to go with that? because, I mean, currently they have a Ferrari engine at Sauber. And, I mean, if we're talking just sort of midfield backmarker teams, Haas also have that engine, but then they're performing at a point where they are getting into points occasionally. They are, I mean, Nico has a lot of P11s. They're up there, whereas Sauber aren't in that position. So it could be, unless Audi are going to come in and have a new team do the chassis and the aerodynamics as well, they could stay as a back marker for a while. I mean, I imagine in the first couple of years anyway, they won't be anything other than a midfield team while they're just finding their feet. And then if they improve their aerodynamics as well, it could lead to good things. I mean, they've got a good sort of group of leadership now. So the only way is up, really.
This is very true. Very true.
Honestly, like, I feel like there's going to be an interesting development for Audi. I feel like their first season, so 2026, they probably aren't going to do too great. Realistically, when it's your first season in a sport like F1, you're not going to have that experience with the aerodynamics and stuff. Sure, they can work with like previous years' cars from other teams, but they've got nothing of their own to build off of. So it might be quite hard for them to get going. But then I feel like they'll come back really strong from that in 2027. Like, they could be a midfield team, I think, if they do well. Like a higher midfield team, like Aston Martin, I feel like. That's the sort of standard that they could achieve in 2027 if they do the right things.
So, basically, like, they can be aiming for the top 5, which is going to be impressive. I mean, as we've said, like, Alpine is in their iteration as Renault were former world champions, and now they're currently, P8 in the standings? If Audi can crack into the top 5, that will be very impressive for essentially a new team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I mean, if we're talking about teams that have been world champions, look at Williams, right? You kind of go on a bit of a downward spiral sometimes. It really depends. I mean, budget is obviously a big thing. Are they going to have a big budget, or are they going to be more like a Haas or a Williams when they're trying to do more with less?
Yeah, I mean, but we've seen with Haas in particular that they have a smaller budget, but they can do more with it. Whereas Williams presumably also have a small budget, but can't do much with it. And they have all of that expertise and history in the sport sort of guide them. I know it's technically a different owner now, but it's still the Williams team, and a lot of the personnel are still there. So it's interesting how Formula One is very kind to some teams, and then it can throw them away in an instant sometimes, it seems like it. Ask Toto Wolff, he knows what that feels like. So any final points you guys want to mention? Anything you want to bring up? Something you think we should take notes of this weekend, or anything else that you want to talk about?
I mean, we can have a little tidbit for Oscar's broken rib, I think, because what wild news that was.
I can't believe that he managed to win a race with a broken rib. That was insane. And then to do Spa and then not reveal it until after the summer break had started.
Hopefully he was obviously cleared to race, so it wasn't horrendous, but it's such an Oscar thing to do, say nothing and then just casually drop that and leave.
He didn't even sound like he cared either. It was so funny.
Yeah.
He's a very interesting character when it comes to sort of just talking about anything or revealing emotions or whatever it might be. He's quite guarded in that way. And I think the correct word is maybe stoic. I don't know. I need to get my dictionary out and just check that. But he is this like very odd character in that he doesn't say a lot. And even when he does say something, it's very sort of short and sweet and to the point. So yeah, it does sort of fit his brand, if you will, to just kind of go, oh yeah, by the way, I had a broken rib, and then move on with your life, He's a very funny guy.
Yeah.
So speaking about Oscar, if I was going to say something to end my section of the podcast off, I would say that I'm quite interested in seeing over the next 10 races, seeing the dynamic between Oscar and Lando. Because if Oscar gets a second win before Lando Norris does, there's going to be some very interesting discussions happening at McLaren about what their strategy is going to be for 2025. Because if they want to win a drivers' championship, which, yes, obviously constructors matters more in terms of money, but the prestige and the media attention which you get from winning a drivers' championship is far more. Like, everyone talks about Max Verstappen winning the drivers' championship in 2021, and no one really talks about the fact that Mercedes won the constructors in 2021. So that drivers' championship is very big in terms of getting money into the team, in terms of media, in terms of selling merch. Sponsors want to now come on board because you've got the world champion. Whatever happens, McLaren is going to have to decide on a number one driver for next year. And I have a feeling that Oscar's going to beat Lando by the end of the season. That's what I think.
The selfish part of me wants it to be Oscar, I can't lie.
Me too.
Yeah, I think a key point here is that Oscar's in his second season and Lando's in his sixth. So what can Oscar do with more and more experience?
That's it. We've seen him improving the improvement from last year to this year has been very interesting to watch. And then even the improvement from the beginning of the year to now, there's been an improvement. So I think that Lando should be very, very worried about his title ambitions with Oscar Piastri in the car next to him.
I think there will be issues at McLaren with having both two very talented drivers in their seats. They're basically equal, and it causes issues if you're fighting for a title. So
for sure, they're going to decide on the first driver at the end of this year for next season. Because, I mean, they definitely have a chance. And they don't want to have lots of Hungaries happening. They want to just be able to prioritize somebody.
Yeah, and, if you look historically, there's been times when McLaren could have challenged for a driver's championship, or actually could have won a driver's championship. But because they had this, no, we have two drivers and we don't pick a number one, they weren't able to really do that. I mean, I think Jenson Button's spoken about when him and Lewis were at McLaren together, that if the team had prioritized one of them, whoever had been prioritized would have been far more likely to win a driver's championship while they were at McLaren. Because they were both they were both world champions racing in that team. So because there was no priority given to them, they would sort of take points from each other every race. Whereas if priority had been given, let's say, to Lewis, okay, and Jenson would have been designated the number 2 driver, Lewis would have gotten more points that season and possibly won a driver's championship, another one. But yeah, it seems to be something that McLaren hasn't quite gotten a grasp of in their many, 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 many years in Formula One. So maybe it's time for them to get a bit ruthless, as they are in their other teams when it comes to kicking drivers out. Maybe they need to apply that ruthlessness, and not necessarily, I'm not talking about kicking Lando out, but maybe just being a bit more ruthless in who they prioritize in a team. And if they choose to prioritize Lando, that's fine. Then they need to do that. And then they can't, as you say, have those strange incidents where, speaking like beautifully to Lando for 15 laps, being like, pretty, please give the place back to Oscar. No, just like back Lando and let him win it, Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and Kira, any last thoughts from you?
Honestly, you summed it up pretty well. I don't really know what else to say about the McLaren situation. I'm just kind of worried for both of them because obviously they're both amazing, and I don't want either of them to be heavily disadvantaged by the situation at McLaren. So
that's the thing about picking a first and a second driver when you've got two drivers that are so good, and neither of them are going to want to settle for second. Then not everybody on the grid is like Valtteri, happy to be a second driver. I mean, he wasn't always happy, but he did it. I don't know how that would go down. So who knows? Maybe McLaren will be stubborn and they won't pick a second, but they really should.
Maybe it's because for so long they haven't been challenging up front. They've kind of, having no number one driver I mean, let's look at Visa Cash App, for example. They don't have a number one driver. Sometimes they prioritize Yuki. Sometimes they prioritize Daniel. But for the most part, they're just kind of like, oh, whoever's in front, like, will prioritize you, or whoever has the best chance of winning points in that race will prioritize you. And that works when you're a midfield team. When you're not challenging for wins, that's fine, because it doesn't actually matter. What matters is just getting as many points as we can every race where we've got that opportunity. And McLaren now has to change from that mindset of being like a top 3, top 4, top 5, top 8 team, whatever it might be, and actually aiming to be a number 1 team. And therefore they need a number 1 driver.
Yep. You summed it up pretty well there.
With all that in mind, thank you to our listeners. We hope you've had a good time in this traffic paradise. It looks like the road to Zandvoort is finally clear, so enjoy the race. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to follow us if you are on Spotify, or like and subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube. Have a good rest of your day or night, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.